Hi everyone, thanks for clicking on another one of my videos. My name's Kim. Today I'm going to tell you in full detail about my travel horror story on what happened to me at the end of my Hawaii trip, which happened 4 months back at the beginning of the summer. It is now the end of the summer and I realize this video is way overdue. Some of you might have heard of what happened to me a little bit, how I got my infection and all that in Hawaii, but yeah, let's get into the full details of it. So at the end of my Hawaii trip, we were there for 2 weeks in Waikiki. My flight back to Vancouver was a red-eye. The flight was at 5 a.m. So our Uber was at 4 a.m. out of Waikiki, layover in San Diego, and then back to Vancouver. So this started 5 days before that flight. I noticed something was wrong with my tummy. I was getting major stomach aches like throughout the trip to a point where like I legit couldn't eat. Like I remember we hiked Coco Head, which is a really hard hike, and I was so hungry after that, and we went to get udon at the end. But then when I got there, I only took maybe like 3 bites before my tummy was so bloated that I couldn't eat anymore. And I thought that was really weird because like I barely ate anything. I just did this really hard hike and I should be super hungry, but I couldn't eat. And so that was a red flag. The next day, same thing happened. I woke up, I took a Tums, and then I ate breakfast like normal, but then my tummy started hurting at lunchtime. And I was like, maybe it's because I haven't had enough food poisoning, I ate something bad, whatever, never read into it. I thought I was just bloated. You know, things happen when you're in a different environment. So for the last 5 days of my Hawaii trip, I barely ate anything. Looking back at it, we saved a lot of money not eating, which is nice, but then I also got an infection. Get to that. I legit just watched Tanner eat all this good food that I wanted to eat, but I couldn't because I knew my tummy would hurt. By the end of every night, it would get better in the morning so I can eat breakfast. And then by the middle of the day, it just hurt all over again. I remember we were at OMG, which is Oahu Mexican Grill. Amazing food, it was so good. Oh my god, get the churros if you ever go. I was eating. All of a sudden, in the middle of my meal, I just got up and left because I just felt so nauseous and my tummy hurt so much. This was on my last day in Hawaii. I just sat there for half an hour not knowing what to do because I was getting a headache. I was feeling so bad from the heat and everything like that. I couldn't eat, I had no energy. So I told Tanner, please go buy me Tylenol, maybe this will help. Tanner went out and bought me Tylenol, and an hour later I felt fine again. The last 5 days of the trip was pretty miserable to me just because I was so scared of what's happening, and also I did not buy travel insurance. Horrible mistake. I don't know why. I thought I did, but turns out we didn't. So thank God I didn't have to go to a doctor in America, otherwise that would be $10,000 over my head right now. By the end of that trip, I knew something was wrong with my stomach. I told my brother, I told my mom about it, and they said, okay, we'll get you checked out when we go back to Canada. So I went to bed. We were supposed to get the Uber at 4 a.m. I woke up at 3 o'clock dying, and by dying I mean I was freaking dying. I was so cold and I had no idea why. I thought it was just the AC, so I told Tanner, my boyfriend, to turn the AC off, but I was there under 4 layers of blanket and a hoodie and sweatpants, but still shivering, and I didn't know why. I was in hysterics by this point because we only had an hour to catch our Uber. And I remember just shivering under the blanket, crying to Tanner, I don't know what to do, I feel horrible, I couldn't stop shaking. And Tanner, you know, woke up in a panic of not knowing how to help me. We couldn't call a doctor, we didn't have time to, and it would cost too much. We couldn't do anything. I had an hour to get ready, get all my stuff ready for the Uber. I remember Tanner just giving me a Tylenol. We prayed I would get better by the time we arrived at the airport. I did feel better from the Tylenol. I stopped shivering. I was able to leave the house, but I had such a nasty headache. It was pounding. I was so cold. I wore 2 hoodies and sweatpants in Hawaii. Leaving, I was a mess. So we got to our Uber. I made it. I knew that there was no way we can miss that flight, because if we did, it would be way too much money that we both can't afford. I was determined to not make Tanner be in that situation, and I knew I had to get on that flight, so I just sucked it up and left. So by the time we got to the airport, Tanner got me a gravel. Thank God I slept through the flight. And then we got to San Diego. Our layover was delayed for 2 hours. So now we had 3 hours to spare in San Diego. I can't eat anything. I felt nauseous. I was freezing. I felt the worst I felt in a long time. But what can I do? We're stuck in America. There's nothing I can do right now. I can't call for help. We're just gonna suck it up. And by the time we landed in Vancouver, I told my mom, I texted her, I say, hey, I have to get to the hospital right away. I'm really sick. And my mom responded, okay, we're here right now. We can go to the Richmond hospital. And I remember being on the phone with her, walking through YVR, crying. I was so scared. I didn't know what was happening to my body. And I finally got through this 12-hour travel day. This day isn't over. I still have to go to the ER. They drove us to the Richmond hospital, and the ER made us wait 3 hours. So by this time, I woke up at 3 a.m. and we finally got admitted at 12 p.m. in to see the doctor. I don't even know how long that is. That's over 12 hours. That's, frick, my math is bad. So 12, 20-hour day. Yeah. So that was 20 hours I was awake and dying and shivering and so cold. The headache, nauseous, everything. 20 hours I was awake that day. Wow, that's rough. So anyways, I was admitted to the doctor, but the whole ordeal was insane. So they stuck IV into my wrist right here, but they had to wait for my urine sample to come back to know what I have, but they suspect there was a kidney infection, and the doctor said I originally had a UTI, but I had waited for too long that it traveled to my bladder, and it was almost into my gallbladder, and now it's in my kidneys. I waited for so long because I couldn't go to a doctor in Hawaii that my infection spread 3 places, and now it's in my kidney. So it's a pretty severe kidney infection, but all I need to do is take oral pills to kill it 14 days. There was some problem with my urine sample that they couldn't tell what bacteria was in it, but they knew it wasn't a kidney infection. So I had to do so many tests because they thought it was appendicitis. There's this whole ordeal with Richmond Hospital where they were taking forever to get my test results back, so they kept asking me to go home, come in the next day. But I still had the IV needle in my hand. I'll put a photo here for you to see. I had the IV drip in my hand the entire time. So that was 5 days of this freaking needle in my hand with a huge bandage wrapped around. Couldn't do anything. I could barely move my wrist or shower. So after the first ER night, I went home and I tried sleeping, but I woke up in the middle of the night with shivers and nausea and hysterics again because I still felt so cold even though I had 4 blankets on. And the doctor said it was because my body's trying to fight the infection, so that's why I have a fever of 40 degrees, which is pretty high. So I had a huge fever that didn't go down yet, and they just gave me pills for it. Sorry, my memory's kind of hazy. This happened 4 months ago. So yeah, that was really bad, but my mom was really strong the entire time. My mom took care of me the entire time. That was really sweet of her. She stayed awake with me. She showered me. I was so codependent at that time for a week because I couldn't do anything. I felt really weak. Really rough time in my life. And we stayed at the VGH for 10 hours that day doing every single test imaginable. They knew I had a kidney infection, but they also thought I had appendicitis, and so they had to do all these tests to make sure I didn't have it, or else they would have had to schedule me a surgery that day because I had to leave to Kelowna the next day. Yeah, it was rough. I had such a short time span in Vancouver, and it was supposed to be like, you know, end of the trip, relaxation with the family before going back to Kelowna to work. And it didn't happen. I just ended up staying at the hospital for 5 days. In the end, they just gave me the exact pills I had 5 years ago for my kidney infection. So that was really useless because I did all these tests to find out if I have appendicitis or not, which I didn't think I had, but they had to make sure. That was really annoying on my part because we switched hospital twice and they had to redo those tests because the hospitals didn't match up. So anyways, I'm glad I don't have to do surgery for appendicitis. I just had to take 2 weeks of pills. But that didn't end because I had to stop my treatment at the hospital short to go back to Kelowna. I had to come to see my doctor in Kelowna to get the pills. I saw my doctor in Kelowna and I took the pills for 2 weeks. And at the end of the 2 weeks, he says that I still have this virus. It's a super virus or something, but I didn't have any more symptoms, which is weird. And he said, you can keep taking pills for 2 more weeks and we'll see how it is, or you can end it now. So obviously I was like, give me the goddamn pills. I want this done. I took that for 2 more weeks. I didn't hear anything back from him after that. I assume I'm all good now, but I haven't checked up. So I hope I don't have any more kidney infection. But anyways, to sum it all up, it was 5 days in Hawaii of intense pain. 5 days in the hospital with many testing and more intense pain from my fever and all the tests and the IV drip in my goddamn hand. But it's all over now. It was a really weak part of my life where I needed a lot of support, and I'm very thankful for the support that I had. My doctor told me the reason I got the kidney infection in Hawaii was because I was dehydrated and I did not pee enough. Remember that, kids. Drink your water and always go pee. I held it in, I guess, because we were always on the go, we were always outside, exploring, traveling, that I didn't have time to pee, and there was very little access to water and stuff like that. That was my fault. Also my fault I didn't have traveler's insurance. But yeah, that is my entire story from my kidney infection and my horrible travel back to Vancouver. Thank you everyone again for watching. I love you all. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. I know I'm not very active. I am very sorry about that. I will try to be way better in the upcoming weeks, months, and year. Thank you very much. I'll see you again soon.